Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about the Resistance faction and why I think they are a faction to really put a focus on right now. And the reason I'm making this video is because I've heard a lot of negative things about the Resistance faction. Almost anytime I see someone using them, it's kind of like, well, I guess we're going to use JTR here, or yeah, this Resistance is really bad, but they're a good counter, and that kind of thing. So I hear this from some of the big YouTubers, and I think they're not wrong, but I also think that there's some misconceptions about the Resistance team, and obviously with the Rise of Skywalker coming out, obviously if you guys have not seen the new trailer that just dropped yesterday or 2 days ago, go watch it. It's amazing, and I'm really excited for that. I'm really hoping that we're going to see some new characters from either from those. From the Rise of Skywalker or from some of the other episodes, because in a recent Q&A, you may recall that the developer said, yeah, they're still looking to add more characters from episode 7, episode 8, and episode 9. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're just leaving the door open for that, or if they're actually planning to give us some more characters from the Force Awakens and from The Last Jedi. So there's a lot of cool stuff there, and obviously the prequel or the sequel trilogy is based around First Order and Resistance. We're going to focus on Resistance here, but as a side note, you got to be working on First Order right now as well. If you don't already have First Order online, you got to work on those guys. The devs dropped a hint that the next GAC is going to be First Order themed. In some way, there's going to be First Order bonuses or something like that. So I've dropped everything and started working on those guys. I'm slow farming the General Skywalker characters, but First Order and Resistance are ones I've been slowly working on, and I'm putting a big focus on these guys right now. So anyway, we're talking about Resistance, not First Order. So we're going to take a really brief history lesson. The Resistance faction used to really revolve around the Zeta Finn leadership and kind of getting a turn meter train going, and exposed train, and all that good stuff. And then when JTR came out, JTR was the first. Well, I guess after CLS, JTR was really in that first wave of characters that really started the power creep in this game. Because if you look at her kit, she's got a huge kit, but also she has a really complicated kit. So you can see if you just look at her abilities, they're pretty long. There's a lot going on here. So, and her leadership was one of the first leaderships where we really had to scroll and see a lot of information. She's got two Zetas, or I'm sorry, she's got two Uniques, three Zetas. So she's a pretty complicated kit. But it's a really strong kit, and I think that just like some of the other characters and teams we're seeing out there, I think she's just a rework away, or a touch up away, or a new character away from really being a very strong team. And obviously since JTR came out, she's been useful across all game modes. She was meta in the arena when she first came out. I used her to get rank 1 in arena for 6 or 7 months, and then in the raid, it's the Heroic Sith raid, she is a pivotal to that. I got in my current guild that I'm in right now because I had JTR and I had the Chex Mix team, and that's all the guild needed because you can throw Kitchen Sink at the other phases. So anyway, so Resistance faction, they're awesome. Let's look at the faction here and just kind of do a really quick review of who's in the faction, what their role is in the faction, and kind of how important they are or not important. So obviously JTR is the primary leadership. Her leadership grants a lot of exposes, a lot of great stuff. We're just going to look at it really briefly here. You get critical chance, critical damage, and then you can expose on a critical hit, and then Resistance allies gain 10% turn meter when an enemy is exposed. So that's really good. And then what's really great about this leadership ability is the next part here, where all exposed enemies lose 5% turn meter, which can't be resisted. And then if Resistance ally has no debuffs, reduce their cooldown. So what happens is that, combined with BB-8, who's Illuminated Destiny, has a really long cooldown, but its cooldown is reduced as people are using their specials. So there's a lot of really cool stuff going on here with this kit, with the Resistance faction. And as you guys probably know, if we look at squads here, let's look at squads and kind of look at some of the squads that the JTR can counter. CLS is definitely a team that JTR can counter. I would say when you add C-3PO with CLS, it gets much harder. And in the other bad thing about it is that if Han Solo hits BB-8 or JTR at the beginning, you're going to have a tough time. So you got a 40% chance there of it going bad. It's definitely a good team, a team that they can beat, but you got to be pretty careful. I probably wouldn't hit a CLS team with JTR unless I had a mod or a significant gear advantage. They're not going to counter Jedi Knight Revan, which is too much damage. They can counter Traya if you bring in C-3PO and R2-D2, but it's not clean, and and honestly, I don't really want to use both of those droids with resistance. That pulls those droids off of other teams that they can really do a good job in. So I don't really like to do that. Night Sisters absolutely wreck JTR. Do not take JTR against Night Sisters. You are going to lose. JTR can beat Emperor Palpatine for sure. You have to be a little bit careful though, because they can get, if they get a turn meter train going on you, or they fracture the wrong person, it can get pretty dicey. So I wouldn't recommend that. General Grievous, JTR can probably do some work against General Grievous, but just like CLS, you really kind of need to have an advantage when it comes to gear and mods and things like that. So it's definitely not a hard counter, but they can beat Grievous, but it's not going to be pretty. And yeah, I don't recommend that as a counter. But if you're bringing Holdo or someone who can do an AOE daze at the beginning and get and prevent B2 from stripping buffs, then you probably have a chance there. But it's going to be dicey. It's going to be pretty dicey. And Holdo is not very good. I don't recommend using Holdo. First Order, JTR has a very easy time with First Order. Even if it's a hard counter. You can underman First Order. You can have a gear disadvantage and still beat First Order. They can do the same thing with bounty hunters. They walk over bounty hunters. I will say that Django-led bounty hunters are going to give JTR a struggle, and you have to be careful bringing in someone like Scav Ray or a Resistance Trooper, because if there's a really good Boba Fett on the other side, then they can really kill those guys really quickly because of the number of buffs that this team can get. For Shock T clones, I don't think I would recommend using JTR against Shock T clones. They could probably beat them, but again, you probably want to have a gear advantage. JTR can beat Karth, but it can get a little dicey. I don't really recommend taking JTR against Karth. You probably could, but you'd have to. I don't know. I think I would be worried about mission getting days up on too many people and too many dots. Resistance doesn't have a whole lot of recovery. They have it through Fen special and through Eliminated Destiny, but that doesn't really get the job done. JTR can walk over Ewoks. JTR can walk over troopers. You don't really see troopers on defense very much, and hopefully you're not using JTR against Ewoks, but you could. JTR can beat Geos, but again, I don't know that I would recommend that, especially if the Geos are high geared, because they could definitely get loose on you. And then those are kind of the teams that I have marked here, the teams that I'm working on. There are some other teams out there. There's Newt-led teams, Separatist teams. There's Phoenix. JTR can definitely walk over Phoenix. There's probably some weaker Jedi teams they could beat. I would not take JTR against Padme or Tarth Revan. And so that's kind of it. So you can see there's a lot of teams that JTR can beat. So I think it's an important team to have, and definitely there's a lot of solo heroic AAT raid teams that use JTR as a leader. So she's important from that perspective. One of the things that is actually a pretty big detriment to JTR, and I was really disappointed when I saw that, was the Gear 13 Mastery. So you can see that JTR gets deflection chance, dodge, health, and protection. So JTR is categorized as a tank, but JTR is not a tank. So it's a shame that she gets these tank kind of things. They're not bad. When you look at her relic, you can see she does get, she gets physical damage, she gets crit chance, but there's not enough there really for her role. Her role is really to do damage and to debuff and things like that. She's really kind of like a just a damage dealer and a debuffer. So she's not a tank. And Finn is the same way, where Finn's got the same. He's got the strength tank. He's got the strength tank mastery, where he gets armor, health, steal, and protection. So those are nice, and he gets. And I actually don't have him at gear 13, but so he gets physical damage and physical crit chance, just like other strength tanks. But it's not really what you need to make him work, right? You need potency, you need speed, you need damage. So he's got this ramping damage on his special. So what else about the resistance team? So what we're seeing here, though, which is kind of funny, is that resistance has a lot of tanks, but they have no good tanks. So Finn is not a great tank. He's okay. He doesn't really have the protection and the tank kind of abilities and uniques and things like that he really needs to be able to be a good tank. He doesn't have any unique, actually, which is kind of surprising. I'm hoping he gets reworked because he's an older kid. I guess he just got reworked. It's probably not going to happen. Poe is another tank, but again, he's not a good tank. He's he can taunt and he can apply exposes, so that's pretty cool. And he can apply buff immunity, which is actually one of the things that that could help JTR a lot. So I really hope that Fenn gets a rework, or I'm sorry, that Poe gets a rework, because if he could get another decent unique maybe, or maybe a Zeta on his unique, then I think he could be really good, because buff immunity is one of the things that that's a really strong debuff that JTR does not have. I think there's like a combination here where if Poe had Bunker Buster or had Holdo's abilities in addition to his own somehow, where he could do the buff immunity and he could do the daze, and he could do some more support healing and stuff, I think he'd be a really, really good tank. I kind of wish they would merge these two characters. It's obviously not going to happen. But anyway, so that's like a kind of a quick review of the faction. You've got Scavray and you've got Resistance Trooper. And Resistance Trooper does a lot of damage. I don't have him at Gear 13, but he's one of the ones I'm eyeing to take to Gear 13. I think he's going to be pretty useful. But it's the reality is the Resistance is not a meta faction. They're probably never going to be. But I don't think that that's the threshold for a character being good. I think as long as the teams have some solid counters, I think that it's a great squad to invest in. If I were starting the game right now, I would probably consider just focusing on First Order and Resistance, because they're very versatile teams. And obviously, probably alongside that, you'd want to start with Jedi and Sith Empire or something like that. But a really good squad, and I think it's kind of a shame that they've kind of gotten slandered in the last few months, or maybe even the last year. They've kind of fallen out of favor. But I don't think there's really any need for that, because I think it's a really good squad. I think you've got characters in here. I think all the droids that are in the Resistance squad here, R2, BB-8, and C-3PO, they're all amazing characters. I think you'd be crazy not to have these characters geared up and Zetaed and all that good stuff. I think that the team definitely needs some work. I think JTR kind of tries to carry the team on her back. And I think the other people in the squad kind of need some more help. Scavray used to be really, really good back in the day. But she's really not any good at all right now relative to other characters. So you can see right now I'm farming Rose Tico and Amlin Holdo. I'm almost done with both of those. Rose has still got a little ways to go. I might start refreshing her node here starting in November, because I think that there's a pretty good possibility that we're going to get some Resistance and First Order content coming up to Rise of Skywalker. That seems like a pretty obvious prediction. But I think when we talk about specifics and we talk about what we could actually see with this movie, I think that, obviously CG is making a lot of money off these epic confrontations. We saw that with General Skywalker. We saw a crazy amount of people spending. We saw that with Malak, where I had to spend about $50 to get Malak, because I spent all my resources getting Darth Revan, and then boom, Malak shows up, and he's this amazing kit, so you got to spend it. So I think these epic confrontations are probably going to be something that we're going to continue to see. And as we're seeing with the prior ones, we saw the Old Republic being needed, and then we saw the Separatist and the Galactic Republic guys being needed, and then I think it only makes sense that we're going to see either a First Order Legendary or Resistance Legendary, or an epic confrontation. I think a First Order Legendary seems unlikely, since there's already a Legendary for First Order. I think it's possible that we're going to see a Snoke Legendary requiring Resistance, and I think it's also possible that we're going to see an epic confrontation. I don't know who the result of that epic confrontation would be. That's why I'm not sure if that one's really likely or not. The other option, of course, is that there's another tier to the to Rey's hero's journey. When the hero's journeys, when CLS and Rey both came out, they were kind of sold to us as here's the first step of this hero's journey, and they kind of stopped short on that. And I don't really know why. I don't know what the idea was there, or if maybe we just read too much into that. But it's been 2 years. It seems like if they're going to do another step, they should do it. And the next step for CLS's hero's journey would be to Jedi Luke, which is something we've kind of been expecting to hit the game but hasn't. So the reason I think that we're going to see another version of Rey is because this version of Rey is the Last Jedi version, and the version that we're seeing in the trailers for The Rise of Skywalker is one who has she obviously has white clothes and all that stuff, and she seems like she's a much more competent Jedi in that situation. So I don't know if we're potentially going to see her with a Resistance tag and a Jedi tag. If she's going to be like Rey Jedi Knight, which might get confusing with Jedi Knight Revan if we get a Jedi Knight Rey. So I think that's possible. I also think that she's the main character, the main protagonist of this sequel trilogy. So I think seems likely that she's going to be one of the ones we're going to get. I think there's other characters we're probably going to see. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen General Hux. I'm surprised that we haven't seen Snoke, and so there's other characters. We have Rose, but we don't have Snoke. That seems kind of strange. But if we think that maybe the next version of Rey is going to come from an epic confrontation, then I think we should look at these factions and try to figure out, okay, so who's likely to be needed. So let's look at First Order first. So the other thing we've got to keep in mind here is that it doesn't really matter. CG can kind of require any characters that they want, right? And they've also shown in the General Skywalker that they're not hesitant to pull in ships into this epic confrontation, which is a complete shock to me that they would ever bring in ships, because they're different. They're in different kind of magisteria in the game. There's kind of, you got your ship stuff and you got your character stuff, but I think that it seems likely that they're going to continue to do that, and I think future epic confrontation we should expect to have those ships done. So that being said, my belief is that we are going to have we're going to need 5 of these First Order characters. And I think that it seems likely to me that we're not going to need First Order TIE Pilot and Special Order First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter Pilot, because I think we're going to need those for the ships. So I think the character portion isn't going to need those. And that's important because I don't think you really needed the gear levels that they suggested for the ships. If you go and look at the ship here for First Order TIE Pilot, he's only got 30,000 power, but once you take him to gear 11 and then you upgrade all the abilities, he'll get pretty close to 40k, and I think that's probably the baseline that we should be expecting. That was the minimum for those guys, for the ships in the General Skywalker event. So that's what we're going to use as the baseline. We're going to assume, because these events are so close together, and we assume that both are epic confrontations, then it follows that they'd probably have about the same event requirements. So that's Relic 3 on the characters, and that's recommended, not required. Relic 3 on all or most of the characters, and for the ships, they want to have 40,000 ship power. So I think that, all that said, I think that we're probably going to see Kylo Ren unmasked needed. Obviously, he's the best leader for the First Order, so I think we're going to see him. I think we're going to see the other Kylo Ren being needed. I think we're going to see Captain Phasma being needed, because she is like a named character in the show. So I think it seems unlikely that we're just going to not need her for a primary First Order kind of event. It seems like you need Captain Phasma. Now, the other two, First Order Stormtrooper and First Order Officer, I don't know if we're going to need either of those. My hope is that they're going to say you need Kylo Ren Unmasked, Kylo Ren First Order Executioner, and then Captain Phasma, or maybe they even drop Fox out of there, and it's just the 3 named characters, and then you can just use 2 of the other ones that you want. That's my hope, partially because First Order Stormtrooper is a pain in the butt to gear, and First Order Officer actually has a really decent kit, so I hope I get to use him. I hope he's not forced to use First Order Stormtrooper. But the other reason I think you probably won't need First Order Stormtrooper specifically is because he's a pilot, so you'll have to have him indirectly anyway. So at the end of the day, all of these characters are really going to be needed. That's what's kind of scary about this, and that's one of the reasons why I think that getting a Jedi Rey from an epic confrontation that requires First Order and Resistance, I think that has some merit, because it's one of those ones that will force spending. It's going to be characters like the Special Forces TIE Fighter Pilot that most people don't have. Most people don't have this character, I would guess. I've not looked at the data on that, but my guess is most of people aren't spending 60,000 guild event currency or something to get these guys. I'm going to, because I don't want to get caught with my pants down. So I started farming him out of that, and I have him at, you can see I have him at 4-star. So luckily, you can get him 4 times a day from the guild store. So anyway, so that's first order. I'm going to take Kylo Ren and Fox and Kylo Ren Unmasked to Gear 13, Relic 3, and then First Order Officer and Captain Phasma, I'm going to get them probably to Gear 12. And then I'm hoping that's kind of sufficient. And then the other pilots, I'm probably going to slowly work on those guys in November and kind of get them maybe to Gear 11, just so that they're kind of competent pilots. So let's look at for resistance. I know we took a little detour there on First Order, but that's just kind of my strategy for First Order with potentially an upcoming epic confrontation. So for resistance, JTR is obviously going to be needed. From here, it gets a little scary, because I think that for JTR, it seems to make sense to me that you would need Finn and Poe and Rose and Holdo. And I say that because you already need C-3PO for an epic confrontation, and you already need R2-D2 for a hero's journey, and you already need BB-8 for a hero's journey. So it seems to me that those are characters that they're not just gonna throw in there and allow you to kind of get through this event. Although in General Skywalker, there were all those characters in there were probably characters you already had, except maybe Shaak Ti. So, but anyway, I think that those the droids. I also think that would make the event really, really easy if you could use Rey and R2-D2 and BB-8, C-3PO and Finn or someone like that. That would be, those guys can walk over any PvE event that you can kind of make up probably. So, I think that to make it difficult, we're going to see Holdo and Rose. The other reason that this is kind of tangential, and I don't know if this is really something that might affect it, but they're 4 ability characters, so that means that you have to have them basically at Gear 10 with a Zeta, or Gear 12 to get the minimum power. But again, I think you're gonna need them there anyway, because as we saw with the General Skywalker, you got to have them higher than that. But these characters' kits are not all that great. The strange thing with Rose is she doesn't have any. I don't think she has any synergy with adding exposed. She does have additional offense for each exposed enemy, so you could potentially have 50% offense with her for exposed enemies. But she doesn't actually apply exposes, which seems strange. And Holdo is somewhat of the same way, but Holdo actually, she does a little bit of health recovery. There is some foresight with JTR and BB-8's Zetas. There is some foresight synergy there. I think the days and defense down is actually really good with Holdo's Bunker Buster. I think one of the things with Holdo though is I think her potency is really low. So for her that she doesn't really get to use that very much. I think Reprieve is really good. I think it's on a 5-turn cooldown, which is pretty gross. And then her unique has some foresight synergy too. But again, these two don't really have exposed synergy. They're not stunning characters. They're not doing any crazy amount of damage. Actually, I'm sorry, Rose does have a stun, I think, on her shock prod. So anyway, so that's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to need Rey, we're going to need Finn, we're going to need Poe, and then we're going to need Holdo and Rose. That's who I think we're going to need for the resistance side of that event. And then and when we go and look at ships, we can see the same kind of thing where you've got 3 resistant ships. You could potentially have a resistant ship battle. I think that's kind of unlikely since there's so few of the ships, and at least with Galactic Republic, there's like several Galactic Republic ships. But how would you make? They'd have to give you some other ships to use because you probably wouldn't be able to do an event with just 3 ships when none of them have recovery or anything. So, but we look at First Order. First Order at least has 4 ships, which tells me that maybe they're going to have a First Order section of the event where maybe part of it is the Resistance team attacking Starkiller base, or they're attacking or they're fighting on a ship or something, fighting First Order somewhere. Maybe they're fighting off the First Order guys when they come onto I don't remember the planet's name on The Last Jedi. So I think that that seems likely, and then there's a first order attack. There's a first order section with ships, and then there's a first order section with characters. So I think that that's something we should be prepared for. The good news is there's a lot of really good first orders, kind of like Resistance, where they can fight a lot of teams. They're not a really super strong team, but when you put someone like Wat Tambor with them, or you really beef up first order executioner, it can be kind of scary. I would think that if I was first order is usually the team that I use resistance against, because they're a very strong counter. But I would be really scared to see a first order executioner at relic 5 or relic 7, because I think he would do some massive amounts of damage. So I think that, again, that this team is close to, a rework or potentially a new character away from being a really, really good team. I think they're a safe investment. I think a lot of them have ships. So the good, the Kylo Ren has a ship, crew has a ship, and they're good ships. So I think First Order and Resistance are definitely good characters. I know we're talking about Resistance primarily in this video, but when we look at these guys, Resistance is a very versatile squad. We've got the other thing is we've got Lightside TB coming up, and I would guess that what makes Rey so good in Phase 1 of the Sith Raid is also going to make her very, very good in territory battles. I mean, she already walks over obviously the Hoth territory battle, but I think even the light side one that we're going to see in Clone, I think we're going to need a lot of good light side teams, and I think Resistance is going to be one of those teams that you really kind of need. And First Order doesn't do so hot in GOTB. I think they just don't have enough raw damage to kind of get through it. But again, that's a rework away or potentially new character away from being true. So I mean, I guess to do a quick summary, I think Resistance is definitely a good team that you should be focusing on. I think it's a shame that they've gotten a lot of bad press recently, but come the new movie, I think if you don't have these characters ready to go, and that includes Holdo and Rose, I know nobody wants to farm these guys. They're single hard node farms, but I think you gotta farm these guys. And the good thing about at least Holdo is she's got stun guns and Mark 5 detonators on her node, so those are two pretty bottleneck kind of gears. You can't really say the same thing about Rose. She doesn't really have anything good on her node, but at least it's only 12 energy. So I would, if you're not, and the reality is, if you're not already farming these guys, then it might be too late unless you're willing to spend some money, because they do take a really long time. I'm probably going to let Holdo stop where she's at right now, because you can get her from Galactic Bounties also. So I'm sure I will get her done before the next movie comes out. But I think I am going to start double hitting Rose's node, because she's one of those characters that is going to be like a gatekeeper character for an event later. I don't think that she just came out that they released these characters with seemingly bad kits that aren't going to be used later. I think it's likely that it's going to be the 5 named characters from non-droids from the Resistance squad that we're going to need for some event. And the other thing was, Resistance pilot it is possible we're going to use Resistance ship, so I wouldn't necessarily sleep on Resistance pilot. I don't think her gear is all that difficult to get. The ship is kind of a pain in the butt to get. You can see I'm pretty behind on the ship. The ship node is not a great node either. It's only 16 energy, but it's not a great node. I've actually been buying her with fleet currency a little bit when I see it, or with Galactic War. It's pretty rare that she shows up in Galactic War, but so anyway. I really like the Resistance squad. I'm thinking about making more videos about Resistance, kind of showing them counter some things and trying out some different comps, because I think it's a really fun squad to use, and it's really good in every game mode right now. You can use Resistance in every game mode except, I guess, Squad Arena. I don't think I'd go into Squad Arena with Resistance, but they're a really, really good team, and the reality is being good in the raids is a really important quality for teams, because you got to play high, especially in the heroic Sith raid, to get good rewards. So JTR is a big part of that. So anyway, I think that's all for the video for now. Like I said, I'm planning to do some additional videos and things on the Resistance, because I don't think this squad doesn't have a lot of content creators creating caring about them. So I want to talk a little bit more about them. Maybe we'll do an in-depth one talking about mods and things like that, and Zeta priority and those kind of things. But for now, I just wanted to do kind of a rant on Resistance and why I think they're cool, and what do I think is coming up in the upcoming months. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the holotables.